Like social relations for Enneagram 5, which a lot of INTPs are, you have like compartments of people you keep separated, which could fit with a hotel, sort of. But I mean, I don't think introverts' interaction necessarily are that more luxurious or any different in any way.
I mean, I guess playing off of that, I mean, the idea seems to be that extroverts can have more like, quote unquote, superficial interaction with people, although they'll have a lot more of it. It's about quantity versus quality time spent with people, and that introverts will like they'll talk to fewer people, and they may not hang out with them a lot, but when they do hang out with them, they like really, really like these people, and they hold these people close to their heart, and they'd always be loyal to these people, and it's
it
like
needs
it's
to
a whole
be
different,
really good.
yeah.
Like it needs to be really good for it to be worth the time.
Your equilibrium,
Exactly.
comfort level for intimacy, basically.
Right.
I think it wasn't so much what I got out of it was that it wasn't so much superficial interaction, but
Well, that was probably a poor choice of words, but I generally just try to get the gist.
We don't
Out,
extroverts
yeah.
don't care because we only have superficial exposure anyways.
it was more like the intimacy and the connection was happening in the moment during the interaction through the conversation and through the interaction, like in space, whereas with introverts the intimacy and relationship was happening just as much in the time between connections as during the connections.
I think I might have something to say about this. Well, I'm trying to formulate a little bit. Maybe I should have waited. But I think you have kind of like an element of how much of it is in your head, right? So, like an introvert, your internal world is like more important than like your external world. So that means that like a lot of stuff does happen, like you were saying, in between like times you meet with these people, and a lot of things have to work out in your own internal framework, instead rather than something that's like a little bit more like, oh, like when we're together, like that's when we deal with it. I feel like that's a little bit more of an extroversion thing, where introversion, like there's a lot of metagaming going on about like the state of the relationship and like, all that kind of stuff. Like even with friends, like not even talking about like a significant other or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, the people who are my close friends, though,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
even
that's
do a lot of that anymore. Like, now it's just like they're my fucking bros for life, and I don't even have to really think about it or worry about it.
Right, at a certain point, it just becomes like second nature, right? It's all in the subconscious rather than something that's like frontal lobe, like cognitive, like
right.
Yeah,
become
automatic. But yeah, definitely when you're first meeting people, it's really intense. Like you're just always wondering if you can really trust them.
Yeah, that's my feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, not me.
I think FE users, when the relationship is made, the interactions, when the relationship becomes established, the interactions become almost insignificant to the overall understanding of the relationship. I think that FI users put a lot more emphasis on the individual interaction and the meeting game from each one.
So you think FE, it's the like initial impression, and then you're like off and running?
No, I think FE has an arm's length. There's a measure of distance that's just implied. Once that's closed, or once the relationship becomes established, It doesn't matter if I punch you, have sex with you, whatever. Ultimately, the relationship is deemed to be solid enough in whatever form it takes that an individual interaction is understood to be a variant of situation where people are unstable, but it's not reflective of the whole relationship. To near the extent as an FI user, who I think continues to take meaning from each interaction.
Or it could be
I
something to
really
that.
don't get FE.
That's okay, we don't get FI either. It wasn't a joke.
I know, but it's like sad but true. It's one of those things that's like I'm laughing because I'm like dying.
I don't get that either.
Yeah,
Must be an FI.
it is.
FE does get swept up, but the sweep, the interaction, the transactional level interactions are not considered significant unless there's a serious shift in trend. But a fight is assumed to have little impact on the on the dynamic of the relationship going forward, unless it's a big fight.
Who are we fighting and why?
A friend. So if Audra and I got in a fight, of course we're type 8 ENTPs, so we do it just for fun. But I don't expect either of us would think that the conflict in the moment was reflective of how things of the relationship that's been established over the time preceding it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was a little bit under the impression, I'm not really much
Almost
of an
like
FI user,
But
but
like the better friend a person is, like the more almost like expect that. Best friends are the ones you can have fights with.
for me, it seems like that introverted feeling, like in the very limited times I use it, but just from my discussions with other people that have it, way high on their stack. There's kind of like these evaluations. There's like something that has like there's this criteria you have that's not necessarily something you can explain, but it's kind of like a value judgment, right?
Yeah.
Like, whereas FE is like I'm not really concerned about that. Like I'm willing to overlook stuff like that if it allows to like lower tension and stuff like that. Most of the time.
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
but that drives me crazy.
What does?
Well, there's a difference.
When people overlook stuff like that in order to lower the tension, because that makes me stressed. I'm like, let's look at all of the things that are going on and like acknowledge all of them, and that's the way we can grow.
See, I can empathize with that a little bit because when I am very stressed and I'm using FI, I do
There's
feel
somebody
that.
talking
Also.
that I can't hear.
Me?
Oh, maybe can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, I think you hear everyone.
Okay, I was just checking. Since there was just a lot of silence and then it was interspersed with answers, and so that was making me wonder. Are
Okay.
you talking in the chat, or is it just somebody I can't hear?
There's a Blanky in the chat.
Okay.
Who is that, Blanky? Kato. Okay. I don't kick
It's
nearly
fine.
as many Blankies as I think I get assumed credit for.
There's a new wall of text on YouTube if you want to read a new masterpiece.
Oh, is it as good as the last one?
It's better, maybe.
No way.
I love YouTube.
I don't think that anything will ever strike such a balance of intelligent discourse betraying such a complete non-understanding of the topics.
Okay.
Well, she does spend a lot of time watching Raw.
Oh, no, please. Oh, you don't tell me. Quick drops, I know.
I don't know if that necessarily makes someone a bad person, right? So you have like a professional relationship, right, where you're looking to like acquire resources and like everybody's kind of like playing that game and it's like mutually agreed. Like I don't know if that's a good litmus test for like what you consider like an uncouth or like detrimental person alone, you know.
They put my face on the picture of the book.
So like like a business setting, for example, where everyone within the business setting has like a little bit of this implicit understanding, but it's the people that like haven't agreed to that like aren't participating in that, perhaps like consumers and other stuff, they get the impression like, oh, because they didn't agree to that, so I feel like it's a little bit of a relative thing too.
I think it's very relative. I think good and bad is very relative because you're talking about action in.
Well, yeah, that's why I tried to reframe it as like something that I think what he meant, which is a little bit more.
No, I don't think any decision is that black and white, really, almost ever, because it might be a bad thing now, or it might be a bad thing in the long term. But there's a reason that someone does something. Are you a dictator because you're paranoid about not being able to provide for your family and you overcompensated? I mean, that's a bad example, but that sort of thing.
There's like environmental factors that lead to behaviors, right? It's like there's like a survivorship bias with like your own behavior, right? So like being able to say that someone's objectively like bad or good in the context that you're talking about, like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. You can't really make that judgment without any sort of like, there's no basis on which to make that judgment unless you have like a supposition that says like, oh, this is what we agreed defines like a good or bad person, but no one really does that, so.
I do think that if the benefit gained from the action is not like if someone's greedy, you can understand the motivation there. If someone's motivation is just sadistic, I think that's different.
So like if they were, you mean like if they were trying to get resources from somebody, not because they needed it to accomplish their goals, but because like the very act of taking it like gave them pleasure?
Right.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I would consider that relatively evil or something like that. If you're talking right now, you're muted. So
that's what I'm saying is like if you're saying this person has something that I want, okay, and I'm going to take it from them, and I don't care what happens to them as a result of me taking it.
Oh, so if you don't even acknowledge like their side of the equation, like so you don't engage in like the empathy exercise or whatever. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Like the person that lacks like mirror neurons or something like that.
Something like that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That would be as close as I could get to defining a bad person.
Someone, it's more like, and you're saying that bad is kind of like, it's just someone that you don't like trust, you're not going to get along with because they're always going to be taking from you, so they don't benefit you, and they don't benefit other people around them, usually.
They only benefit themselves.
Yeah.
So that everyone around them is kind of in agreement that like, this isn't very nice.
Exactly.
This isn't good, so
that's
we're going to say it's bad.
Define who's bad.
Right.
And furthermore, anyone who's bad by any objective standard would never worry about how good they are.
Right. There wouldn't be a concern about like,
right.
Is this the right thing to do? It's like this is the thing that I need to do to get this done.
Right.
And you can have that thought and simultaneously have a thought,
Well, right.
Is this like for I recently
Like
got
getting
in a pretty
shit done
big
is
fight with
obviously not
somebody.
inherently bad. Acquiring things is
Yeah.
not inherently bad, but
You think about like for example, I could like screw this person over, right? But then I think about like, well, I know this person has a family and like kids and stuff, and that's something that like pops into my mind.
yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't mean I still might take the action if I determine that it's like, oh well, it's not going to be as bad as I thought. Maybe I'm over. You might still take the action, but
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Any action that is self-evaluatory and that makes a good or bad a moral decision based on a self-evaluation as well as an evaluation of someone else's circumstances, neither of which can be objectively accurate,
Right.
is really hard to judge. But some things, I mean, at some point, you just know where the line is.
Okay, can you watch the one with my computer?
Yes. And this is not ready. This is ready.
Well, yeah. Then you're gonna get into a whole argument about a moral imperative and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's why people insist that you need some kind of moral compass because, then you can just, if you don't have a moral compass, you can justify any evil.
Well, this is what ethics is for,
Yeah.
right? Going back to this.
Right, exactly. That's what ethics is all about.
I mean, as far as making laws, rule of law and rule of like morality in a deeper sense, they're different things. It can be legal and be immoral. It can be, so.
That's why I don't give a shit about the law.
Well, even if
Well, as
you
far
do-
as like a moral as guidelines, like no, obviously not.
Yeah.
even if you do have a moral compass, you can vary it. Like you can go so deep into denial that you can
Yeah, your code of
decide
conduct
that you
is not
don't want to
necessarily-
follow it.
Yeah.
And you can ask the question like, am I a person? And then decide to answer it with, oh, I had to do that in order to answer your own question with a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the
I
only
feel like that makes you a bad person.
way I actually really find any meaning in life actually is that one thing I do know is that I don't want to be a total shitbag to people. Like that's
Good
all
call.
I got.
Yeah, I've actually struggled with not being willing to be enough of a shitbag. I have like the opposite problem where I've had to become more callous than Machiavellian in order
What type are you, out of curiosity?
INTP.
Okay.
Because my natural state was very much one of like conflict aversion, pretty much on every level.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that. I mean, I don't know. When I was a little kid, though, I was a total fucking prick to people. Like, I called them stupid. Like, I didn't fucking care.
I was conflict averse unless
Yeah.
one of my core principles was violated, which happened all the time with regards to me and my teachers, for example. But not
My
a lot
only
of
core
time with others.
principle was
Yeah.
being right. So if anyone was wrong, then they were idiots, and I didn't like them. Like, it was that simple. But then I grew up and ended up with some weird kind of misguided altruism for a while. And then I just got treated like dirt by people for absolutely no reason that I could see. And then I stopped that. And now I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I went through kind of similar path, except like a lot of the altruism is kind of stuck. But I ran into these problems where I kind of like living in the real world, like after finding places to live in like college and stuff, and like dealing with other people. Like I got fucked over enough times by just like total strangers that aren't giving you considerate because you're a kid or whatever. And it kind of hardened me a little bit in terms of like, if you're too conflict avoidant, there are people that have that entire personality, like through their survivorship bias of their life, is developed in order to capitalize and take advantage of that. And And so you have to like protect yourself against that. And in order to do that, you have to be a little bit more, sociopathic, as if they're acting in order to actually like fight off those kind of threats. You're muted again, by the way.
I keep muting myself so people don't have to hear my loud keyboard.
You still got your altruism.
I think this whole thing boils down to extroverted sensing as a function. I think that's where that whole exerting pressure on people thing comes from.
My weird resolution of this is that like I'm pursuing an ultimate goal that has altruistic ends, but the means may not be altruistic, and that's kind of the scenario I'm at right now, which is kind of like, I know it's like not entirely consistent, obviously, but it's kind of like the way it seems like it has to be, because there's always so many roadblocks in the way of like accomplishing anything that you need to be able to overcome, and it involves sometimes being able to maneuver and like outmaneuver people, which is much more realpolitik. There's not a lot of empathy going on there except for to understand and analyze your enemy, right?
Well, and what you described earlier, though, I just kind of simplify it as there are some people that you can't reason with. They don't want to be reasoned with, and the only language they seem to understand is aggression.
You have to show strength in order to win their respect. Yeah.
You have to speak to them in the language that they speak, because otherwise they will not understand you.
Like I've ran into people in my school program that are very much, they only respect you if you show strength. They're only gonna they're not even gonna give you resources or communicate with you unless you show yourself as like a strong person that is independent and able to fight battles and win, and they're attracted to that.
Certain people will not respect you until you basically tell them to fuck off, which doesn't really make
on that
perfect
level
sense
too,
at first, but at the same, it ends up working out.
You stood up to me finally. I've been waiting.
Right.
Right. And until then, they just treat you like shit.
I've gotten really good at getting that shit out of the way quickly these days. I can pretty quickly figure out if they're the kind of person who needs me to just shut them down.
Good.
It's just like, okay, do you want to fucking fight me, dude? What's your problem?
The problem is that oftentimes, the people I'm most likely to get into that kind of mode with, for whatever reason, it's my own personal problem, I guess, is with women. In my, I don't know what it is, but whenever that happens, I'm not even saying ones that I'm attracted to or anything. But that definitely, I come into that problem the most, and obviously I can't take that mode, because and I'm talking about women in this case that are kind of that more sociopathic type, that just happen to be women, right? Because I can't really take that approach because they take advantage of the fact that they're, quote, in the more vulnerable state or whatever, right. And they can kind of and I have no defense against that. So my strategy has just been avoiding any woman that's sociopathic. But the thing is, I have to
ignore them. It's the only way to do it.
I feel like I don't know. I don't like that scenario, because I feel like that I should be able to figure out how to deal with that.
What? No, they have not even earned the right to be dealt with. They should be completely ignored and thrown in the trash. That's what you need to understand.
I don't know. Maybe. I like to, part of me likes to think that there's a way to get some utility, at least, out of these people. If you're not going to have a friendship or anything, that there is at least some value to interacting with them in the right way.
Or just shit talk them for fun.
Yeah, that doesn't backfire, right? Suddenly,
hey, you're a cunt.
They get evidence of that. They hear other people say it. They tell their boyfriend. Their boyfriend then commits to the fin. It's
Okay, so kick his ass. To also tell him his girlfriend's a cunt.
okay. Do all that. So I verbally assault his girlfriend,
Yeah.
right? She makes sure that in all the public scenarios that she appears to be the victim, and then I beat up her boyfriend. Like, I'm definitely the good guy in that scenario. Yeah.
Who cares? Anyone who's actually smart knows that you're the good guy.
Right, surely.
Like, it's like I didn't start any of this, but I damn well am gonna finish it. Like,
Yeah. That's kind of
Yeah,
what I ended up
what-
doing. Like, eventually I was just like, I can't fight this battle anymore. Like, this, and if they're really much more
here's Neptune
socially.
for you. Her boyfriend doesn't try to kick your ass. He tries to rape you. Like,
Wow.
that's Neptune's world.
I see.
It would probably win the fight.
No, it's actually funny because this girl that I'm talking about that I got in a fight with, like, she was actually convinced that I was like trying to steal her boyfriend from her for whatever reason.
Was it at the same time that? Oh yeah, it is a girl you're fighting with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a connoisseur of boy pussy, but I don't identify as gay or whatever. And I was kind of offended. I was like, that's the only time I ever felt like someone was like being like discriminatory. It's like, you think just because I'm, into dudes sometimes that you're gonna fucking like that I'm gonna steal your boyfriend? Like, what the fuck? Like, so there was an element of that too. So that's probably why it was extra weird, because it was like kind of believable because of people's biases.
There's some irritating accusations that you can't resist against at all.
Yeah.
It makes it worse.
Yeah. So sometimes, yeah, like in that case with her, I should have just completely ignored everything and just been like, okay. And just like not tried to fight it, You're muted again.
I don't agree with your position at all.
Yeah, some people just aren't worth fighting with.
Okay, well, I want to hear the dissent.
Oh, well, some people just aren't worth fighting with, but that assumes that they're not doing anything that can't be completely ignored. I mean, if someone can't, if someone's fighting,
Literally anything can be ignored. I mean, unless it's actually threatening your livelihood directly. I mean,
Right,
Yeah.
like there wasn't a lot to fight for. Like I was friends with this guy, to an extent and stuff like that, but we weren't real super close or anything like that. So
sometimes ignoring people is the best way to hurt them.
that is true. That is true, and that's a form of fighting.
Yes.
That is true.
well,
Good way
that's
to
actually
fight.
something that this girl would do all the time. Whenever I'd visit their house or whatever, she would just like pretend that I wasn't there. So it's
I mean,
funny
like,
you bring that
They're
up.
like, oh, give me attention. And you're just like, no.
Yeah, that's really what we ended up doing. We would like, it was really awkward though, because I'd be at the house because there was like a bunch of my other friends that would live there, and then both of us would just like pretend the other one didn't exist the entire time we were there. It was like super awkward for everyone
That's
else.
the best kind of roommate ever.
I had the same sort of roommate, actually. Did not like him. He was strange.
She wasn't one of my roommates. I was just visiting a friend group that had a bunch of people that all lived together, and I was there a lot of the time as well. So
Either way.
yeah.
I've done that, but I always make a point to pull attention to what it is at least once. Like,
Well, another thing, a problem was that she was really, 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 really hot, and a lot of these guys are like science nerds and stuff, and so like there wasn't much like.
you have an uphill battle. Get out of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why like I'm like terrified of this like person, that type of personality and gender combination. It's just like I'm so ill-equipped to handle it. So
If you're only sometimes interested in dudes and you're scared of that combination, you might as well go to all dudes because they come as a bundle deal a lot of the time.
yeah, but I'm talking specifically about sociopathic that also happens to be a woman. Like women in general, like I'm more attracted to dudes, but I just have a harder time connecting with women also in general. So
I've been married to one, so I'm a bit pessimistic in my responses. They're kind of jokes and kind of not. Mostly are. Saw Suzanne's mic unmute. Then it muted
Cute
again.
Taylor.
But like they're mostly kidding. You went back on.
You're fucking hopeless.
Hopeless romantic.
I knew it,
Stare a
Taylor.
lot into the screen for someone who doesn't even have his camera on.
What?
What?
Was that? Never mind.
Yeah. Did you read it?
Oh shit! I got distracted by other stuff.
Which vid was it on? Is
Big community showdown.
okay.
Okay, everybody, stop talking so I can watch the videos.
Wait, is that me and Taylor fighting?
Yeah, that's up there.
No,
That's the big community show.
I was answering.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something really interesting while Taylor's busy watching a video.
Good idea.
I hate you.
We're gonna talk about psychopathy. No.
Gee, make them be quiet or I'm kicking you.
Do we have to talk about something interesting?
Let's all sit in silence while Spacey clicks his mouse. Yes. I'm the fucking loudest one here, Jesus.
Actually, kind of gonna go read the wall of text, so I'm gonna go do that.
How often do you call something interesting as an automated response because you have nothing else to say?
So often.
Me three.
That's so
Interesting.
interesting.
I feel like that's my stand-in FE response. Like when I am trying to reflect the mood of, like keep harmony in the group. Like, oh, that's interesting. I don't want to bother you. Okay.
See,
It sort of buys time for me to formulate a response, but
I think I've tended to become more blunt and be honest when I'm not interested in someone because and what they're doing, because I've found that when someone else does that to me, it's so obvious that they're being patronizing. It's immediately obvious to me, and it really annoys me because it really, really bothers me because I feel that way. I project that other people's might feel that way also. So I prefer to be more blunt. And if I don't care, I'll just tell them quite honestly, I don't care sometimes. And obviously, certain personality types are just oh my fucking God, what? Who says that? Who could be so rude? But from my perspective, I'm
some people.
ideally people would just be better actors, I guess.
Some people just like to talk.
Yeah.
They don't even care if you're interested. They just want to
that's a
talk at
takeaway.
you
Takeaway
for a
from
while.
this is that you gotta be a better actor.
Yeah.
I feel like I only do it when I sense that I'm really only a stand-in for any person,
Right, and I can get that. I can understand that because sometimes I'll be talking, right, and if I'm being honest with myself, I'm kind of having a personal internal monologue. It just happens to be external and directed at this person. Sometimes I'm just talking to myself, and then in that case, someone being oh, interesting. If they pick up on that, I could understand, But.
I more mean in the sense of big groups. If I was at a dinner party with my family and I was not interested.
Oh, I see. But since there's your family, you don't want to cause problems or anything, so you kind of feign it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More in the social propriety sense, where it's okay, I'm just gonna keep the peace and not.
Yeah, I would say that I probably wouldn't be as blunt as I just described towards a family setting or whatever, just because there's a more it's a more intimate thing, and people expect a little bit more from a family.
I thought it'd be the opposite. Like, you're so
Yeah,
comfortable with your family that you can be like, I don't care.
Yeah, I say whatever the fuck I want to my family. Even my grandmother. I don't even give a shit.
Well, it could just be the difference in family dynamic. I don't know.
If it was like a big family party, like something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like extended family.
I pretty much single-handedly changed our family dynamic actually by doing that, and everyone pretty much followed suit, which I didn't expect. But now my whole family like eats pot cookies and shit because of me, basically. and it's way better than liquor, so good for me.
I don't think I'd ever get my mom to do something like that.
I got my grandmother to do it. Shit, she loves it.
Wouldn't that be kind of hard to talk like your mom or your grandma out of like a bad weed experience? So, like if they ate a little too much.
Well, my mom,
like that would be a nightmare.
When I made my own cookies,
you're not dying, Grandma.
which ended up being really, really strong. My mom was so baked, she was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die! But that's only happened once. We also gave, like my senile old grandfather, we gave him like half a cookie, and later that night he's like, "I feel like I'm walking on air." And then he takes off his shoes, and he's like looking inside his shoes to see what's in them. It was so good.
Someday psilocybin will be legal, and we'll have all kinds of weird stories to tell about family members.
Shit.
Have you seen the burning bush?
But yeah, I don't know. I was like talking to a girl one time, and she was like talking to me about something, and my eyes just drifted to like a TV off to the side, and she's like, "I'm sorry, am I boring you?"
and you're kind of like, well, demonstrably so. Like, but you can't say that, Like,
yeah, I was like, well, it's actually easier for me. To listen when I'm not looking at you.
I had a
It's, like,
whole
awkward.
interview that way once. It was like a really like kind of thinker kind of interview, and I was thinking really, really hard, and it was totally like not my normal thing. So I had to I couldn't look my interviewer in the eye, and I had to look out the window the whole time, and it was like so fun.
Oh god, eye contact.
Like, this is so stupid that I'm doing this, but I have to.
Man, eye contact is like a very specific skill I've had to like think about actively.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I realized like how some people put a lot of weight on that than others. Like other people like don't care at all, but there's some people that are like, they don't respect you at all unless you look them in the eye,
No, I've narrowed it down to TE users who are the ones who are like, look him in the eye and shake his hand. Like,
it's that sense of value that like, that sense of like, this is what I respect, and this is the thing that makes me feel good.
And that's really American society in general, though, is like
Yeah.
that. It's not really my thing.
Would you-
but hey,
Would you guess that, like in other countries, for example, with like the formalism with like bows and Japan and other stuff, that typing would also kind of be more likely to, care about the, that respect angle of it, like whatever the cultural thing is, or do you think it's something that would be more culture specific?
I think it's something more culture specific. I mean, at least the way that you show respect is culture specific. Like like in Japan, for example, I don't know if eye contact is as important.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like the
Right,
equivalent, like respect thing. You would think that TI in general would be. Perhaps that's one of the evaluation things that they're using as like the value judgment is like that whether or not they respect you kind of thing. Like
I would say objective demonstrations of respect that everyone is expected to show are not related to any introverted function. It would have to be like I said, the TE thing in all cases, pretty much.
Sure. Okay.
Something like that. I don't think TI as a function gives a shit about showing respect to anybody.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Sorry, I meant to
like,
say.
yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, I'm a fucking rebel. I don't know about you.
Right. Well, it's more about like it's like
Yeah.
having this framework that is consistent. It has nothing to do with like
Right.
this other like value judgment or something like that. There's no.
It's like it's almost like finding an efficient way to show that you respect somebody. It's like if you
If
do
somehow
this, it must
naturally
mean
do, like without
that you
like you're not. Well, I kind of misspoke a little bit. It's more like you're not worried about like organizing anything and making anything like functional necessarily. That's not the primary like direction. So that's kind of what I meant by like you're not comparing it whether or not it's going to be like a functional working thing so
Right.
much as like
you're
is
just
it
going through the motions.
yeah it like whereas TI is much more here's the entire framework and I've got it all like theoretically it's an idealized kind of like crystalline state rather than
Yeah.
this like practical action kind of oriented thing, I guess. Something I desperately need, actually. I need to find a partner in crime that has, pretty strong TE, I think.
I hate TE users, dude.
I know, but you need them.
They got a stick up their ass. I don't need them.
Don't need them.
It's like if you want to have a well-oiled machine that's working, you need them in there,
Well, yeah, that's for damn sure. They get work done. I'm not denying that.
But you got to show them. You got to show them
Yeah.
respect for them to do the work.
No, it's literally what they do. It's their natural state. It's just working.
I think INTJs would be a decent TE user to pair off with. But
I've tried, but
Prob-
I keep running into
Yeah.
respect issues with them. They feel disrespected eventually.
about a lot of things if they're immature, yeah.
Well, I find that they usually think I'm an idiot.
Well,
So-
but they kind of feel that way. You kind of get that
Yeah.
vibe that they feel that way about almost everyone, unless they
It's
find
like,
someone
they're
that's like
always like,
remarkably similar to
you're
them. Yeah.
technically wrong.
A lot of times they require a bit of like really like worship that doesn't seem like acting as well.
Yes, they definitely require like personality worship,
Yeah,
to a
it's
degree,
weird. I don't
which
like
is really
that.
hard for me to, in good faith, like give them and not feel like incredibly like dirty about.
Yeah.
Like I don't really idealize you in that way. Like I idealize them for their ability to relentlessly pursue a goal and enact it. But
What's obnoxious though is often they talk about how they're not where they're supposed to be instead, so they have a tendency to complain as well. I've noticed a lot.
yeah, they definitely feel entitled to a higher station.
I feel like the TJ thing.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean,
Letting and like knowing you're not there and needing like not being uncomfortable with the like space between. That was a thing I heard recently.
What do you mean by that?
The space between where you are and where you want to be.
Okay.
Like being so uncomfortable with that. Like needing to talk about it all the time. Maybe that's just a thing that
It's like so. It's like there's kind of this obsession with closing that gap, and it's like kind of in the front of the mind. You're saying,
right. I
okay.
feel like that's a TJ thing.
See, like that's something that like something that I see that I envy. I guess is like being able to have this like almost like lofty, like kind of like absurd goal that most other people wouldn't ever pursue, and then actually being able to jump in and drill away at that, And you know, because I'd still be stuck at the like, oftentimes like in the stage of I don't know if I've made this like ideal enough so that when I move forward that like it's going to go smoothly, you know, the first time I try, kind of thing. Whereas they're more willing to be like, well, I have a functional thing that's probably going to work. I'm going to start working on it and make it functional and then improve upon it. You know, there's not this like fully forming the system before you begin work on it.
I was talking to Ash about this in Slack the other day. That's really the judger versus perceiver dynamic. I think is that the judger they won't wait for more information before acting. They have an impulse to act.
Right. Inaction makes them extremely antsy, you know. Right. So, like when I was working with this guy, for example, like I was kind of, you know, making a plan that and part of it required like a bit of time in which you had to wait, not hesitate, but wait, you know, like intentionally, like a strategic waiting period, and that, you know, he ended up like breaking off early and kind of like, you know, messing it up. From my point of view, right? He was probably like, "We can't just sit here, you know. We got to, we got to."
Well, yeah, the perceiver will like, in the opposite way, will just wait for more information ad infinitum until and then they think they have all of it.
Yeah, and it's like you can never have all the information. Yeah, you've got to act on like 40% of the information, and that's like so uncomfortable for me.
Right.
Yeah.
When I find myself acting on like 40% of the information, or like even acting at all, I find myself questioning like every single step of the way, like every single microsecond.
Mm-hmm.
Valuable? Is this worth doing? Do I like what I'm doing? Am I there yet? Like,
wait, what's your typing?
INFP.
Okay.
Like, am I making something good? Is this what I wanted to do? Does this make me feel good? The whole freaking time. And so like every single moment is a quitting moment or like a redirection moment. And I have to like, it's almost like I've like taken Adderall, but I don't have ADHD and I'm just like vibrating, waiting to get out or like.
I definitely feel that way too sometimes, especially when I'm in a particularly stressful time where there's a lot of ambiguity and like there is no way to secure more information. You know, it's like functionally impossible. You just have to wait.
You just like have to like sit on your hands and keep like chugging along and like.
Yeah, and the acting in the absence of information, you know, an information deficit is like so like frightening, you know, because it's not where you have your strengths, right? Because if you have the information, you can analyze the system and consistently avoid the pitfalls, you know, whereas like rolling with the punches is like a very different skill set, you know.
It's the fucking any monkey on your back, dude. Like, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a way out of this.
Right.
For me,
and usually you're right. It's just by the time you figure it out, it's too late.
Yeah. It's like, damn it, I knew it. I knew I was going to make the wrong decision.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
That must be your TI, not having enough information.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But then, like, in tandem with, you know, because part of what's driving the desire to keep going is that you, in your intuition, you know that there is like a much more elegant, pristine solution, and you can see it because it's in your subconscious, but you just can't force it into something that TI can understand, because that's where you're doing your conscious action, you know.
Right.
I guess that's how I would frame it.
Well, yeah, it's basically, it's like the knowledge that no matter what you do, at the end you will know that you could have made a better decision.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's no quick save in real life.
Right.
If only.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, it's not with information so much as like the vision and the feeling and like or not the feeling so much as like I don't have a very good way to describe it. That sucks. It's not information based, because I'm pretty good with like acting on kind of little information, but
Well,
I
I'm
just have a very perfectionistic like idea about like what I want, and then like I never have enough to like get it out there, you know, to like get the full thing out there. So then like I never have the full world built up in my head. And so like I just need to keep building the world up in my head so that I can be ready to put it on a paper, but then I'm never ready for that.
Right. That's the trap I fall into too.
Yeah, I get confronted with these like decision points where I have to make decisions about these ideas that I haven't even considered yet or haven't considered enough, and it like drives me crazy.
Yeah, I've started, you know, looking a little bit into Zen philosophy for this very reason, because, you know, I want to be in a state where you really don't hesitate, you know. It's fine to wait, but it's definitely like you shouldn't ever, you know, just be hesitating, you know, because of the absence of information. You should have like, you know, the very like Zen thing to do is to just act and continue on, because you have to have this like understanding that when something happens, like you don't have any idea at the moment it happens whether or not it's going to be good or bad, because it's just you know, something might appear to be good at the beginning but end up with all these consequences that are bad. And like, since that's true of every decision, you need to like kind of, you know, just let it go with the wind a little bit and don't hesitate. And that's something I'm trying to work on myself, and Zen seems kind of like the answer to that particular problem. But
we're so good at hesitating and considering. Like I'm so torn between like working on my weaknesses and finding coping mechanisms and doing those, and also like acknowledging my strengths and focusing on those, and like just like being a cooler, stronger INFP that's like really good at what she's good at, you know, like, hey, seems like I'm really good at waiting. I guess I'll be a really good waiter, you know?
Let's say you're in a medieval king's court, okay? What role would you prefer to play of like all the people in the king's court?
I'm the fucking jester, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
What about
or like the king's fool or whatever. You know.
Interesting choice.
I don't know.
I'm the court wizard.
Like
I'll say that. It's my preferred job. Anyway, what did you say? I was talking over you.
Like the wizard or the Ronin.
Like the advisor that, like, you know, the person that has, you know, the responsibility of generating like good ideas and stuff like that, but doesn't have the responsibility of enacting them, you know.
And it's crazy
systems analysis, you know.
Everybody comes to when everything else fails, and they're like, we know you're crazy, but we need an idea here.
Right, that kind of thing. Or you know, looking at the whole system as a whole and being like, you know, this is what you would have to do in order to ensure you secure these resources and make sure that you, like, you know, appease this group and this group. Like, that's, you know, from a detached kind of, like, you know, view where you're just doing systems analysis. Like, that would be my
I would have
preferred.
been that for a little while, and then somebody would have got threatened, and I would have got thrown out. And that's why I
probably. Yeah, you would have been too, you know, you're too close to the king. Like, obviously, someone's going to try and get rid of you, you know. But
being a fool would be badass, dude. You get free room and board. Your only job is to like dance on tables and talk shit to people, and, like, make fun of them and tell jokes. You just get to completely use your wit to have fun. Like,
that's fair enough.
The advisor who got banished and is now living as a hermit in the forest, and like.
So like almost like a shamanistic kind of.
Yeah, and occasionally, like, the children of the people in the court come for like random wisdoms from the hermit.
Right, and you just have to be careful not to be branded as the witch, right? And then.
Right, but like that would be okay too, because like
that
sounds like fun.
Yeah, okay, it could be very
exciting. Hero's journey.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Interesting with the jester idea. It's kind of like, it's almost like if I was being honest and like got rid of like all these like ideas I have about like things I want to accomplish and stuff like that, and just like to have fun, you know, and just like enjoy yourself. Like that probably is the ideal position if you're looking to just have like an enjoyable, pleasant life. I don't think being advisor to the king would be particularly like, you know, it'd be very stressful, political. You have an early death.
Sometimes the fool also doubles as an advisor to the king, like in secret.
Right. It's like through satire they influence the king. Yeah. Through making fun of something, you know, then they realize like the horrible truth behind it, and then change the policy or something.
It's the best, absolute
But
best.
being an advisor would be really fun for a little while.
You'd want to. I'd want to like honestly. I'd want to advise different people, you know, for the creativity about it. I wouldn't want to, you know, be at the beck and call. Of, yeah. Independent contractor.
I would just want to be like totally like enveloped by the situation and like totally stressed the fuck out, you know, for like 6 months and then done, like vanished. Like,
yeah, I prefer to do things in like, you know, big projects and stuff, and like these incredible furies of activity, because part of that's because I know that my stamina is terrible. So I'm like, if this is gonna work, I gotta like, you know, really fucking finish it quickly. But some things in life like cannot be done in that way, and you'll burn yourself out, and then you'll be worse off. I've realized.
That's always how I made it through school.
Yeah, that's how I made it through school until, you know, fucking like electricity and magnetism, like quantum mechanics, like physical chemistry, like, yeah, no. It's, you can do it to a degree, but you end up in a certain position where like that starts to fuck you over, especially when you're doing things that aren't like school, like necessarily like task completion, like for a class, but let's say you're like trying to do your research credit or something. It's something that you have to like continually do over the semester, because you're gonna have like continual trial and error, and like if you try and do it all at once, like you're going to burn out of school. Like
This is why I gave up being an engineer and just dropped out of 4-year college, because it's just this massive workload.
It's become an incredible point of stress in my life.
Yeah,
but
are you getting your engineering?
So much busy work.
I'm going for chemistry and mathematics right now, bachelor's, and the thing is, right now, like the school environment is like the antithesis of everything that I'm like about the current school environment in the United States.
That's why I picked up a trade.
But I've realized that like I need to have one foot in, one foot out of academia, because it's a centralized area of knowledge, and like the real value that I get out of university isn't the classes or like the structure or any of that. It's the people I have access to, right? Because there's like this understanding that you're like a student that's like trying to learn, and so you go to like pretty much anywhere on campus, even if it's not your major, right? And you can like extract information from these people that have spent their entire lives, you know, doing research and like studying this one particular subject. And they'll willingly give it to you when you're like a student and you're in the, you know, but if you're just like someone from the industry or whatever and you step in and ask for that kind of stuff, like, you know, most of them are like not as forthcoming, right? So that's kind of like what I see, like the real value that you're paying for. And that's what I try and capitalize on, like the grades and the degree that you print out and get and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's valuable in a way, but it's not really the true value that you can get from the environment. And that's why I'm still here, but it's terrible, stressful, shitty environment that's just like, oh my god, it's so bad. Like I can't even express.
I hate academia. Yeah. Everything about it. I hate the people. I hate the structure. I hate everything.
Well, what I realized is that there's a lot of people that don't like the bureaucratic like formalism that comes with it, but they're kind of you know, they can't do anything about it because they're tied by like course curriculum and like the requirements. You know, it's kind of like you have people that are navigating the system the only way that they're allowed to, right? And so it ends up like everybody kind of having that vibe, and like people really focused on like task completion and like you know, meeting metrics and like making sure, because you know, the way it is in academia, like you can't get funding for anything unless you show the efficacy of what you're doing, and that includes like even like your classrooms, right? So there's this huge incentive to have